Time to start.
Rock concert movement number 1. The basic head bob.
Hello.
Ready, go.
Back again. Brad Joe with you on it. Absolutely good. Is this the last of the good weather days? You know?
I haven't checked.
I haven't. There was other stuff on last night. Which we'll get to.
Yeah, my radio show was on, so I mean that
there you
was
go.
totally what I was watching.
I didn't see a forecast, but I think today is the last of like the really great weather, so might be a dog park day. Don't worry, I am very well hydrated right now. Dan, you missed the, I don't know, the response to the State of the Union is where presidential hopes go to die. Bobby the Exorcist Jindal, remember when he was seen as a serious and legitimate candidate for president? Not so much now. And last night, the great non-white hope of the Republican Party, Marco Rubio, who was so proud of the middle-class home that he grew up in, that it is on the market, I think at a relatively reasonable price in the greater Miami-Dade area. But that's neither here nor there. And while everyone is deservedly mocking Marco Rubio for an absolutely horrid performance, like, I don't mean, that looked like something, apologies, like that would happen if I just kind of threw like my old part-timers on, like, go do this. That was the level of performance. And I know style over substance, and we got plenty to talk about with the substance as well, because there really wasn't any. But man, trying to think back, who was the last person who really succeeded at a response? Be it Bobby Volcano Monitoring Jindal, or, pardon me, I'll have to do I'm Michelle Bachmann delivering the Tea Party response to the State of the Union. Don't pay any attention to where my eyes are going, because I don't know either. Unless you're following up Casper Milk Toast or, George W. Bush, there's no upside to doing it. They need to stick to just throwing nobody's in there, get that guy, from Podunk, Tennessee, a little bit of exposure, send out kind of like the vice presidential candidate in an election is kind of the designated hitman. He can go places that the presidential candidate can't. This is why I think you keep spare parts like Steve King around. Let Steve King go. As long as he's reading off the teleprompter, the most evil of evils. So he doesn't say anything, hilariously racist. Let him go. Throw some red meat to your base, because, wow, the national exposure last night, chewed up, swallowed, and this morning left Marco Rubio in a pile. That was really bad. And Marco Rubio had his own issues with any future presidential run. Say a history of lying about his family's experience fleeing Cuba. For years, he had talked about how his family fled Castro. Viva la free market. It turns out they left in the late 50s before Castro, but neither here nor there. Also, the Florida GOP is to corruption and criminal behavior as the Iowa GOP is to Ron Paul, to give an example. And he is, nipple deep in that. So, because he has, like Hispanic on his voter ID, he was, immediately looked at as a Republican savior. But again, the image versus the reality was always a bit off. And man, last night was bad. And yes, we'll talk about the president's State of the Union address today. But in some ways, the Republican response is almost more telling of the landscape, because most of what we saw in the president's address last night was, political Brazilian jiu-jitsu. We're going to find uncomfortable positions to put Republicans in and force them to act. The president is Hoist Gracie. See, I know my early Ultimate Fighting Championships.
I'm surprised.
And as we saw, they were entertaining back in the day.
Back in the one boxing glove, one MMA kind
Yeah,
of.
but the original was like, we're going to bring a boxer, a martial artist, a street fighter. It was all these different fighting styles. And, they bring in, these big, bad Ivan Drago, Mr. T dudes, and they would all just get absolutely destroyed by like this 150-pound Brazilian dude, Hoist Gracie, who would just, oh, hello, Mr. Big, Incredible Hulk, intimidating man. How are you doing today? Excellent. All right, should we get down to this? And 3 seconds later, the guy's like, oh, yeah. It was amazing to watch, and I think they just stopped inviting him because there was no suspense.
No, the sports just moved beyond that. Now people know both boxing and jiu-jitsu, or
now
in my case, I train Muay Thai and jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I'm not an MMA fan just because it's a part blood sport, and if I want to watch that, I have a copy of The Running Man
I don't
at
think
home.
it's part
Why
blood sport.
half-ass?
I mean, are you going to call boxing part blood sport too?
There's more science to boxing.
There is way more science to
the
jiu-jitsu.
especially in the lower
Oh, you're
weight classes. In the heavyweights, it's basically just a pummel fest with the occasional ear biting.
Yeah, I think you're still stuck in watching like UFC 1 because there's so much science that goes into these guys.
Because I keep odd hours and I know how to find things on the internet.
The Muay Thai techniques, the jiu-jitsu is like a chess match. I mean, you have to be three people. You have to be 3 moves ahead of the next guy not to get your arm broken.
Well, yeah, I've seen some of the streams of was it someone St. Pierre?
That would be George St. Pierre.
Yeah,
GSP.
I've seen some. It doesn't appeal.
But it's one thing to say it doesn't appeal. It's
to me.
another.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
But it's another thing to say that there's more science involved in boxing.
I think
but that's not true at all.
You're talking about
you're talking
a
about
century plus of boxing, which is a dying sport, yes, but partly because it doesn't have the kind of blood sport aspect of the MMA, which is why the MMA is kicking its ass.
Actually, MMA has had less injuries per year, not just like in general, because I think we can look at boxing in a 100-year spectrum and be like, yeah, of course it has less injuries, but per year has less injuries, has less serious injuries, and has never had a death. It's not as much of a blood sport.
With the big gloves, you can pummel someone a lot more.
You do a lot more brain damage. There's a lot more damage done to the body.
Yeah, because your hands can only punch so much often. You can only wear like those little hand wraps. But it just turns into like a grapple fest. And yeah, I'm sure there's technique behind it, but not one that appeals to me. There's technique involved in putting up drywall, but I don't want to watch it, and I'm certainly not going to pay. You're on the phone. I have no idea how much those pay-per-views are, but it seems like a crazy thing to just spend that much money on. The MMA doesn't get to me, but I think there is a Hoist Gracie reference to be made as far as the president, and it showed. I don't know if this was Marco Rubio tapping out last night. Let me just say, anyone who wants a national political profile should be able to talk for 5 minutes with a teleprompter into a camera without making a huge flub. All these guys have media coaches. I think, what did Steve King end up spending, like $60,000 a year or something silly like that? Almost as much as he spends in funneling campaign contributions to his own children on media coaching, media consultants. The type of people who teach Deborah Norville how to, host Inside Edition better, or Jeannie Zelasco is, how to be the court reporter on the People's Court. Teach Steve King how to, say hilariously racist things into the camera. But neither here nor there, but once you get past the fundamental flaws in the Republican response last night, and you look at the actual substance, this from the New York Times, Marco Rubio has learned nothing. Pretty much it. First line, because his party has learned nothing. And that's pretty much the gist of it. I mean, Marco Rubio said nothing. Even before, and again, I don't know what the term, Watergate, which I think that one's taken, popped up. My reaction was, they shouldn't have let the last 3 months of Sean Hannity's shows write the State of the Union response. There was nothing in it other than, just usual Republican pablum. There wasn't any real discussion or disagreement with what the president said. There certainly wasn't any bold, new plans or ideas from the GOP. It was milquetoast. It was a tired excuse to just trot out the same talking points you'll hear on any AM radio show, any episode of Fox and Friends. And if that's your response, what you're actually telling us is you've got nothing. One area that stood out, and maybe this is just, like calling Marty McFly a chicken. There's just some things that set people off. One for me was when Marco Rubio, and again, I'm not sure. I don't know what's in the heart of the man other than the Sahara Desert. I don't know whether he was intentionally lying or just unintentionally parroting liars. But talking about the economic meltdown and saying that this idea that our problems were caused by a government that was too small, it's not true. A major cause of our recent downturn was a housing crisis created by reckless government policies. Now it's time for me to throw a red flag. Or if you're outside the United States, raise a red card. Because Marco Rubio, you're wrong. And again, this is a personal thing. Maybe it's an issue of mine. But for years, a little over 4, as a matter of fact, this is one of those zombie lies that just keeps coming back, and no chainsaw or shotgun can kill this thing off. So it must be battled back every time. And this goes back to the Republican argument that, it was all Fannie and Freddie. Fannie and Freddie. Fannie and Freddie. Now, pay no attention to folks like the Cato Institute or a number of conservatives who argued during the housing boom that, by the way, Fannie and Freddie weren't doing enough. Because the funny thing about the subprime boom and all the interesting and exotic, interest-only mortgages available during the worst of the boom. Here's the thing you got to understand. The absolute height, right, of the housing bubble. Here's one to blow the mind of your Fox News watching uncle. 84% of subprime mortgages were issued by private lending institutions. Private firms made nearly 83% of the subprime loans to low and income or moderate income borrowers that year. Through 2002 to 2005, GSEs, aka Fannie and Freddie, saw a drop in market share, going from 50%, right, of mortgage originations to 30%. Whereas private label securitization shot from 10% to 40%. Again, don't believe me. Believe your lying eyes. how many mortgage shops popped up. Same way we have gold buyers now, setting up shop in decrepit shopping malls, and even, Jordan Creek and Valley West. Go back 5 years, and we had the exact same phenomenon with these kind of fly-by-night mortgage places. We're the mortgage masters. We're the mortgage wizards. We're the Maharajas of mortgages. They were all over your TV. Why? For a very simple purpose. There was absolutely no risk in it for them. What risk is there in loaning money when you're not going to hold this thing more than 10 seconds? Because there was literally an inexhaustible demand for securitized mortgage, backed securities. You make $1 million, we'll buy $1 million. Make $10 million, we'll buy $10 million. We're going to buy them, sell them, trade them with our friends. We're going to break them up into new pieces. We're going to sell those off. We're going to make bets on the performance of these things. We're going to make bets on our bets of the performance of these things. We're going to pass them between ourselves in a very lucrative game of hot potato. And since there's only a certain percentage of Americans who can afford to, put down 20% of a house, and if they live in it for 15 years, well, they're not buying more houses. Wages are flat, so it's not like we're creating new people. And Mitt Romney can only buy 8 houses at a time. So we need to find new people to sell mortgages to. This is where your subprimes and your interest only came in. And that led to the Community Reinvestment Act being brought up. And this was a late 70s law put in place by the Carter administration to end the practice of redlining. Bankers, being an interesting bunch, responded to the Civil Rights Act. And that meant you can't, we don't give green to blacks, was no longer legal. So bankers, again, money, like nature, Jeff Goldblum, will find a way, and said, we don't turn black applicants. We just don't loan to this neighborhood. Oh, it just happens to be a predominantly minority area. Who knew that? We couldn't tell. We just have a red line around it. We don't loan here. That was their way of getting around the Civil Rights Act. The Community Reinvestment Act outlawed that practice. And this law, put together in the late 70s, through, by the way, previous mini housing bubbles and bursts, magically showed up in 2006 to destroy the economy if you listen to morons. 6% of higher-priced loans, a.k.a. subprime loans, were extended by Community Reinvestment Act covered lenders. Most mortgage origination came from groups who were not even under the Community Reinvestment Act. So, again, this is just one of those zombie lies. And how do I know it's a lie? Well, I listen to conservatives. Again, in 2000, the Cato Institute, this is the libertarian think tank, provides a lot of the talking points. Should CRA stand for Community Redundancy Act? The American Enterprise Institute in 2004 saying, study after study has shown that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are failing to do as much as banks and S&Ls in providing financing for affordable housing, including minority and low-income housing, a.k.a. they should be pushing more subprime loans. That was the conservative argument back then. Funny how times change. Now, was the government involved in creating the housing crisis? Absolutely. The Commodities Modernization Act of 2000. This was Phil Graham's little baby. That deregulated this commodities market so that you could create mortgage-backed securities. I mean, it really is perverse and intentionally dishonest. Instead of, blaming the actual cause, which is your just base desire to deregulate everything, even though it never works. Ask the airline industry. How's life been for them since they were deregulated? Ask Wall Street. I mean, can anyone show me an example where deregulation has been a benefit? Maybe I'm just old and remembering, the savings and loan, debacle. These efforts to deregulate end up costing us a lot of money. All right. 244-0077. Email radiobradshaw@gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/Radio Bradshaw. I would mention the Tea Party response brought to you by Rand Paul, but it mentioned Obama phones, so it had nothing to contribute to the conversation other than maybe an argle-bargle and a howl at the moon. When we come back from break, I want to talk about, again, what the president should have been doing 4 years ago. As a man who once described himself as the decider asked, is our children learning? Our president is. And I think we saw very good signs of that last night. Was it perfect? No. But I see a strategery at work here. And I'll lay what it looks like to me when we come back. If you've got any response or maybe, I don't know, a bottle of Poland spring water to offer, like I said, email me, radiobradshaw@gmail.com, or stop by and say hi on Twitter, where I'm not making this up, I posted video of Pope John Paul taking batting practice. And he actually has a decent swing. Not infallible in a batting cage because he fouled a couple off, missed a couple. But you know what? For a guy who was approximately 178 years old at the time, pretty good. You can go check that out on my Twitter feed at Radio Bradshaw. I'll be back right after this on The Bradshaw Show, theBradshawShow.com, on Webcast One Live. Thanks for watching.
Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershad.
I am administrative manager
I am the senior technician.
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
It's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave. and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
It's time to start.
There we go.
Rock concert movement number 1.
I can't say.
The basic head bob. Ready
But I know
to
a good
go.
speech when I hear one, and last night's State of the Union certainly qualifies. Yeah, not just for what the president said.
Hey, did Fallon agree with you on that, though? I wasn't paying attention.
No, he was a little.
But he's kind of like, he was mad because he thought that Obama could have hugged a few more trees. That's kind of what I picked up.
Kinda, yeah. I mean, that guy. Do I wish we were not, beholden to dead dinosaurs to make our, society go? Yeah. But the fact is, we are beholden to dead dinosaurs. We are a fossil fuel-based society.
That's actually based off the entire fossil record, not just dinosaurs.
Well, I know most of it's like
Well,
dead sea plant life.
I asked
and-
somebody that, and they thought dinosaurs specifically.
But most of your friends don't believe. Well, they believe that people saddled up dinosaurs.
That's not true. I don't know. I know people that believe that.
You can go to the Creation Museum and literally find a dinosaur
I
with a
understand,
saddle on.
and
it.
I've interviewed Ken Ham, and was not impressed. Nor do I think he's the authority on creation.
No, but when you talk to the folks at like the Discovery Institute, I mean, I don't like to throw this term out loosely, but they believe that it is absolutely okay to lie if Jesus is the cause. As long as Jesus is behind it, it is okay to lie.
I actually would correct you there and say I don't think they're lying.
We
think
caught them in Dover.
In what? How,
Kitzmiller versus Dover.
Who's that?
That would be the court case that threw out intelligent design.
But that doesn't make that not true, nor does that mean they were lying about their beliefs.
Well, no, I mean
it's one thing to believe
read
something.
the decision, because what ultimately doomed them was, this Discovery Institute-backed school board saying, again, one thing in public and another to like-minded friends.
Yeah,
and
everybody does that, though.
Well, and then bringing on, was it Ken Ham who testified?
Don't know.
But bringing in, and you have to pardon me, creation scientists.
Which I don't think Ken Ham has any degree into which he
No,
called
and I
himself
don't
that.
think it was Ken Ham. I think it was some other,
Would have been like Kent Hovind, maybe?
maybe some other scammer, but came in and just was destroyed on the stand. And maybe the most damning piece of evidence, the missing link between creationism, which, again, since the 1980s has not been allowed in public schools, except in Louisiana, and intelligent design, was we found a transitional fossil, a creationism textbook that the writers did a bad job of doing, find and replace, replacing, literally just going through, and maybe this was a first draft, but replacing creationism with intelligent design. And it was see design propitionists. That's the missing link, because it was located throughout the book, and it just shows they literally did find on a creationism textbook into an intelligent design.
Yeah, but you're taking one
Textbook.
section of Christianity, which I do believe God
I'm
specifically
I'm
created the
taking
world, and I don't believe in
intelligent design
and-
activists.
Yeah, and I don't take macular evolution to be fact, but I do think that things that evolve in a micro.
What happens again, micro over enough period of time?
Micro over enough period of time still doesn't account for me how a dolphin became a man, much less a monkey.
Well, a monkey didn't become a man. We just have a common ancestor.
I would say that we are from the same family, but I don't know that
Yeah.
that's inconsistent with intelligent design.
Um,
It's awe creator. It's not a schizophrenic creator. We wouldn't.
I mean,
be made of a completely different.
are there any non-Christian intelligent design proponents?
And not. I don't know. I know.
Look, it's a backdoor for creationism.
Well, Ben
they
Stein.
lost in
Ben
the
Stein's
80s.
not a Christian. He's not
Judeo-Christian. There is that.
You would offend a Jewish person.
And by the way, Ben Stein, as we learned through his movie Expelled, was incredibly dishonest, not just with his interview subjects, who none of them were told that they were doing a movie on.
Neither did Borat. Does that make Borat a bad person? Well, he is kind of.
Well, it makes Ben Stein's intelligent design documentary as serious as Borat. Yes. My favorite, though, Ben Stein incompetent boob story was at one of the premieres.
Yeah.
Two of the people who were in the movie showed up. There was a stir caused because it was P.Z. Myers and Richard Dawkins.
Yeah.
And the funny thing was, they flipped out at P.Z. Myers.
Sure.
They kicked him out of the movie that he was in.
Okay.
And they let Richard Dawkins in.
Yeah, well,
How did they miss Richard Dawkins but toss out P.Z. Myers?
I don't think Richard Dawkins concerns anybody. Nobody in the circles I run in thinks Richard Dawkins.
As someone who has brought him on the radio here in Des Moines, absolutely yes. They
they
are greatly.
Christopher Hitchens was 10 times the atheist that
Christopher Hitchens was just louder and better at trolling.
He was just better all around. He had a better argument. It was smarter.
Hitchens is one of them.
Dawkins is a waste of space. He is.
As someone who's read the Blind Watchmaker,
yeah, I've read it too. I just don't think. I don't think Richard Dawkins is all intelligent. I didn't think that was a well thought out argument.
Look, I understand he angers.
It doesn't anger me. I'm not mad at him. I don't care.
Non-believer.
I don't.
Okay, he causes passive aggressiveness in believers.
No, here's the deal. I'm not responsible for Richard Dawkins. I'm not angry at the guy. I don't care.
I've seen how many believers respond to him.
But many believers, you got to put that in the context of people that don't even understand the religion they believe. Because I believe in a God so sovereign that if he wants somebody to believe, he can compel them to do so. So I don't need to worry about what Richard Dawkins does or Christopher Hitchens. In fact, they ask good questions that Christians should ask themselves. Because you can't have faith in something you don't know the answers. If you're lying internally to yourself and you're like, I don't know the answer to that, or
no, that's called blind faith.
That's called stupid faith. And nobody calls for stupid faith.
I would argue we just said the exact same thing in different way. Blind faith is stupid faith. Blind faith is literally avoid. I'm just going to ignore this stuff around me.
It's not, but see, blind
because I want to believe.
I understand that your definition is correct. I'm not saying it's not. What I am saying, though, is the blind faith that Christians would think about is not what you're referring to. When I think of blind faith, I think of a God that I believe in, that I can give a logical and concise answer for, saying this is true, and me going, I don't know how that's true because I don't understand how a resurrection would work. I don't have that mental capability to go, oh, that makes total sense. I realize that sounds supernatural. It sounds crazy.
Well, it is supernatural.
Yeah, it'd have to be. It would have to be, right? And so I have faith that happened. I have no vision of that. I didn't see it. I have a book that tells me it, and I have a God that's confirmed it in my heart. But that's entirely different from the blind faith that you're talking about that wouldn't even ask the question, well, if I can't see it, did it happen? Because I think every Christian worth their salt at some point goes, did this really happen? And has to answer that. Otherwise, they don't have faith at all. They have...
Well, again, that's what it turns into. I believe it happened, and
I know it happened.
Then it's a matter of the motivation behind that, which is going to be different for every person. Some people believe it out of fear. Certainly, fear of death has been something that has powered religion since the beginning of
I think it compels a lot of
society.
people. Absolutely.
Some of it is just need for comfort. In a lot of cases, when I've people looking to fill a hole, and there are no shortage of ways to fill a hole in your life, to fill a hole in your.
Well, you fill yours with porn.
Not really. That's kind of a side, but
That's just
no. But there are people.
there's a space on the.
There are
tray.
people who do.
I understand that.
Maybe one of the best examples that everyone is aware of locally, Steve Dace, who's very open about telling his story of being just a booze and porn hound with no redeeming qualities, and that's what he was filling the hole with, and there were negative consequences for that. He received negative feedback when it switched to religion. Again, it's a different symptom of the same disease, but it gets positive.
I understand
feedback.
Almost everybody that's religion begins their walk in that religion from a broken place. I get that. I'm not going to argue that. There's some validity there.
But there are other ways
to
fill it with positive reinforcement.
Yeah, let me ask you a question though.
Acquiring money.
I understand. But let's talk about acquiring money for a second, because that was my next question. Steve Dace would do better if he was not so vocal about this Christianity, because he's not doing great. He's not famous. He's not.
I think he's doing pretty well, and
he's doing better than.
It's a nice racket.
It's not, but he's not doing well. He's not Glenn Beckrich. He's not Sean Hannity. He'll never be those guys.
No, but he's in. He's in slower running waters, but safer.
I don't think it's safer. The problem with Christians, and me and Frank's on the phone, so you can take that.
Because there is a separate stream.
But the problem with Christians is Mac, on a Christian radio show where he talks about his Christianity, gets calls from other Christians that are angry at him and tell him he's not a Christian because they don't believe that. Because in any group in society that I've ever seen, I've never seen a group that's willing to eat itself as much as Christians. We are willing to
Dace
separate.
doesn't get so much into doctrine.
Absolutely. Dace gets in a ton of doctrine.
He paints in broad.
No, he paints in very specific brushes, and that's his problem. He's not preaching some message of God is love and it'll all work out in the end. He's actually
because that's not the kind of doctrine he's interested in.
He's interested in what we would call Reformed doctrine. And Steve Dace paints with very particular
I would
brushes.
say he's more of a Zeus throwing lightning bolts than a follower of Jesus. But that's just me.
Well, I understand your perception of Steve Dace, and I understand that you know the guy and you have some experience with Steve.
I ran into him.
Oh, you don't know him? Well, I know Steve.
I was doing my show one afternoon.
Sure.
And I consume a lot of caffeine.
Yeah.
And I took a commercial break and had to.
I assumed you knew him.
No, I just know of people through him and the stories he tell and the stuff he tells about himself on the radio. I guess when things were going well for him, it was an interesting listen. Again, I didn't agree with what he was saying or who he was supporting.
Sure.
But there was an entertainment value. Somewhere along the line, something clicked. I don't know whether it was not getting his contract renewed or what, but it just became just like hateful, spiteful. And even when he's like smiling and laughing, it's in a hateful, spiteful way.
Well, I think he sees the world with glasses that show him the depravity of a world, and it's upsetting. It's upsetting to me to look at the world. It's why I don't watch the news and I don't watch the State of the Union. I don't need Barack Obama to tell me the world, the nation's great and we're getting better, because it's BS.
Well, I think that's part of kind of the self-reinforcing blind-ish faith.
But that's not part of the blind faith. That doesn't even have anything to do with my faith.
I know what things are, and I don't need anyone to tell me. I'm not going to watch the news. I'm not going to.
But it's not that I know what things are. It's that you can see them. I see people on a daily basis that are hurt or hurting in this economy, and I'm not going to pretend like it's getting better because I haven't seen it get better.
But it is getting better. Is it getting better fast enough and in the right areas? Of course not. I would never argue that.
You argue that it's
but it
getting
is
better
better.
in some kind of arbitrary in 20 years. We'll look back and go, oh, it's getting better.
I think
and
we
it's
make
not.
ginormous
What
mistakes.
strides have we made that make the economy better than it was 4 years ago?
We're not losing 600,000 jobs a month.
Yeah, okay, but the people that have lost their job, not getting them back.
Now, all recoveries are
It's stagnant.
jobless.
Stagnant isn't any better. In fact,
all
prolonged
recoveries
stagnant.
start.
I would rather see more jobs get lost and innovation happen and bring about a different era of time, like it's happened repeatedly in history, than for it to stay stagnant. Maintaining a bad market with a huge job, 8% unemployment rate.
That's the point, is to not do that. But there are certainly powerful and influential forces who are determined.
Stopping the bleeding isn't fixing the problem.
Well, that's the first step in triage.
But the problem is I don't see any plan that he's enacting that's doing anything other than giant Band-Aids.
Well, part of it is obstruction, and that's why I was excited about what we saw last night. Is our president learning? Yes.
Our president's learning how to be a dictator, and you celebrate that. And I think
Dictator?
Absolutely. Well, if you don't do what I want, I'm just going to go ahead and do it myself with my cabinet because I got the power. Woo!
He does. Are you saying
saying
executive orders? Because
I'm saying executive orders is with that man is a very dangerous proposition.
I don't buy that. I mean,
I know you don't buy that. You voted for the guy.
Yeah,
you trust him. I don't.
No, I understand, and this is the same argument when Bush was issuing his signing statements,
don't-
which I have a much bigger disagreement
Listen,
with. Because
I'm
executive
not giving
orders,
Bush a pass here either.
But hold on, executive orders are part of his ability. His hands are very tied when it comes to many things, but
Sure.
executive orders is a very clear-cut issue.
I think maybe we can't agree on this, but I think in general, executive orders are a sign of very bad things.
I think it's a sign of accepting reality, which kind of goes back into our blind faith, because we know what the president's plan was coming into office on day one, which was start getting some small victories.
I had no idea because all I ever heard was hope and change.
No, well,
I'm still hoping for the change.
you didn't listen to my show enough because we saw.
Unfortunately, I listened to your show too much, and I just, to be honest,
why do you think the
disagree with
president
everything
keeps
you say.
talking about the Lilly Ledbetter Act? It was one of it was supposed to be part of a bigger plan.
Do you think Barack
you score
Obama,
a 1, then you score a 3, and then you score a 5, and then you score a series of 5s and 6s?
You as a
in the
Democrat
hopes of getting,
really feel like Barack Obama has done good by you? He's fulfilled his promises he said he was going to do
Yes.
for you? Wow, you're deluded. All right.
I certainly have a different take on things than you. But anyway, the plan coming into office, and it was a bad plan, as I think the last 4 years show, was we have a wall of obstruction, and we're going to try to peel Republicans off. It didn't work. His efforts to reach across the aisle, bend over across the aisle, were all rebuffed. On day one, and even into election year. And I think the president has finally realized that that's going on, and that's not going to change, and we need to change how we react to it. Capitulating to Republicans gets him nothing. And I would argue hurts the country, hurts the economy, hurts jobs, hurts people. Giving in to the party of no, which may have, again, reached its pinnacle during a completely made-up false crisis. And that is the debt ceiling being held hostage in 2011. Which, again, didn't end, but certainly reached its crescendo with President Barack Hussein, Super Allah Obama, peace be upon him, offering to Speaker John Boehner, head of the party of no, trillions in spending cuts, cuts to Medicare, cuts to Medicaid, cuts to even TRICARE. That's the military socialist health care plan. And thanks to Republican incompetence, they could not take him up on his offer. They couldn't use his own offer against him, to their own detriment, and luckily for the country. Seniors don't get thrown under the bus in a failing and flailing quest for bipartisanship. Again, it did nothing but hurt his administration, hurt his agenda. He gained nothing. All those invitations to Chuck Grassley, who would like to commend, by the way, for voting against the Violence Against Women Act yesterday. Nice, Chuck. During the debate on Obamacare, over and over again, Grassley was brought in. Why? He's got sway. For a time, he was the lead Republican negotiator. What did Obama get for those efforts at bipartisanship? Chuck Grassley on a street corner in Iowa accusing the president of wanting to pull the plug on grandma. There are over 160 Republican amendments in the Obamacare legislation, the Affordable Care Act. What did the president gain for that? Being accused of ramming it down their throats, something Republicans are oddly fixated with. There is no upside. Republicans are not interested. Part of the reason was we described yesterday. Anything with his name on it is seen as bad, evil, terrible. 60% of Republicans approve of immigration reform involving a path to citizenship, until Obama's name is mentioned, and then that falls to 39%. They have made him such, of an antichrist. That was one thing that caught me. I was, I have no shortage of righties in my Twitter feed, and I was kind of reading it along with the address. And I'm like, who are these people, talking about? Who are these people arguing? It is 100% straw man. And part of it's just the mirror image fallacy. We are for small government, so obviously our opponents are for bigger government. And Obama, must have grown the government, even though facts say that he didn't. That sort of stuff. They argue with this imaginary version of a Stalinist dictator that bears little resemblance to the man currently in the Oval Office. Well, last night was a sign, and again, it's all about follow through. That the president finally, truly understands the lay of the land, and is going to use it to his advantage. Smart guy, and no one gets to a position where they're potentially president of the United States without having, a bit of a dickish personality. You have to. You have to step on some toes. You have to shoulder your way through some stuff. There's no other way to get to that point. We haven't seen that, really, from Obama. Part of it, Dan brought up, talking about climate change. One of the examples, if you talk to 100 doctors and 98% of them say you have, aggressive cancer that must be operated on immediately, and 2 of them say, it might be a problem, might not, nothing we can do about it. Are you going to believe the 98 doctors? You're going to believe the 2. Now, everyone who's honest is going to say they're going to follow the direction of the 98 doctors and ignore the 2. That same logic does not work for climate change deniers. They're more than willing. Yeah, the 2% make me feel better, so I'm going to go with them. So the president said, if you don't do anything about it, I will. And he does have abilities under the executive, privilege to make changes. And he should. No offense, but if the only response to anything from the Republicans is no, hell no, or let the Senate do it, then you got to go around them. The Fix It First program, to put people to work as soon as possible on our most urgent repairs, like the nearly 70,000 structurally deficient bridges across the country. The average bridge in this country is 43 years old. 4 years ago, there was a nationwide study. 70,000 bridges are structurally deficient. Almost 90,000 are functionally obsolete. This is what you're driving across every day. And that's just bridges. Take it a step further, whether it's power distribution systems, water and gas lines. In many cases, especially big cities, we are using 100-year-old infrastructure. Told this story before, but the New York subway pumps out, hundreds of thousands of gallons of water right on the Marco Rubioist day in July. Let alone when there's precipitation or flooding. And many of those pumps, at least before Sandy, were secondhand pumps. Secondhand from where, you say? The building of the Panama Canal. Yeah, those were keeping the D train dry. We see, gas lines and steam lines, explode, literally just exploding. They weren't meant to last 100 years. I've been arguing for a WPA, 2.0. This was the Great Depression program to put people back to work. Right? We have a lot of unemployed people hanging around in early 1930s America. We're going to hire them to build the old Valley Football Stadium. Was a WPA project. In Newton, they still use, I think, they still have their old football stadium. That's a WPA project. Many of those projects is the infrastructure we still live with today. But it immediately puts people back to work. And more important, in the grand scheme, gets people spending money. We are a demand-driven economy. 70% of our economy is consumer demand. When people spend money, we do well. When they don't have it, not so much. Now, the rise of the master charge has been a convenient cover for the fact that for most of the last 30 years, wages have gone flat through access to credit or the occasional housing boom. Gives people, the money to buy the finer things in life, like not feeding their kids cat food. Wages have remained flat. Therefore, spending remains flat, which means economy not going to grow the way that it should. Putting people back to work is good. And with that, and this is one of the fun ones, the president calling for a rise in the minimum wage from $7.25 to $9 an hour, which is actually a step down from his original request. How many years ago? For $9.50. Was that during the first campaign? And this is a big one. Generally, a minimum wage job in America is seen as, you have failed somehow. True that millions of Americans live, we'll use that term loosely, on the minimum wage. A rise to $9 an hour. And maybe the most important thing is indexing it to inflation. As inflation goes up, minimum wage goes up. So we don't run into a situation like we find ourselves in today, which is that if the minimum wage, again, had just kept up with inflation since either 81, 60, whatever you want to pick an arbitrary date. But if you just took the minimum wage from 1981, indexed to inflation, it would be $10 now. Not even close to the buying power the minimum wage had in the 1960s. So let's tie it in with inflation. Let's take it out of the fits and starts mode that it's in now, where once every 15, 20 years we'll get around to raising it up. Study after study shows that raising the minimum wage does not hurt jobs. Why? Because of that 70% figure I told you earlier. More money to spend equals growing economy. November 2002, you may have let your subscription lapse. I'm here for you. The Review of Economics and Statistics finds no detectable employment losses from the kinds of minimum wage increases we have seen in the United States. Another study in 2011 found no impact on hours worked or employment levels. Economists David Card and Alan Kruger actually found that job creation increases when the minimum wage goes up. And again, I'm old enough to remember the 1990s when Bill Clinton wanted Congress to raise the minimum wage, and you get the same, it'll kill small jobs, it'll kill small business, and it never does. And it always spurs job creation. Every time. The folks at the Washington Post reached out to John Boehner, who's already poo-pooed the idea. Eat the poo-poo? And was asked for a source with their claim that it kills job creation, kills jobs. What did they get? They got an article from Forbes and a paragraph from a think tank. No facts, evidence, anything with numbers in it. That's, again, from the party that gave us a budget with no numbers in it, entirely, normal. But it increases people spending money, and that grows our economy. This is why, by the way, there's such a benefit for extended unemployment, food stamps, and the like. This is why there's such an improvement in the economy. And this is an example that we're going to see here in Iowa, I think, play out during the governor's race in 2014. And expanding Medicaid. More money people have to spend. And you're looking at pretty much, $40,000, $50,000 on down. People generally spend 100% plus of what they make. This is why, again, giving food stamps increases the economy, and tax cuts for the 1% don't. That money doesn't immediately go into the economy. Unemployment insurance does. Raising the minimum wage causes people to spend more money. Spending money is what drives our economy. But whether it's raising the minimum wage, ending tax breaks for those top 2%, putting people back to work. These are all popular ideas that Republicans can't. Yet, even if these plans would benefit their district or their state, they can't go along with them because they have Obama's name on them. He put a sticker, can't eat that out of the fridge. It's poison to the Republican base. And this is the jiu-jitsu we saw last night. This is less than the actual proposals, most of which I like. The real takeaway from last night's State of the Union should be a sea change for the president's direction. Let's get stuff done. And if we have to use the Republican base against them, all the better. The almost fetish for bipartisanship that has done nothing but hurt him. Because again, No quarter or credit will be given by his opponents, and all you're doing is ticking off, well, the majority of Americans that agree with you and voted for you. There was no upside to it, and it didn't help get things done. Let's start using the party of no against them. Let's get a little Hoist Gracie, and let's contort Republicans into positions they find very uncomfortable and watch the fallout. All right, email me, radiobradshaw@gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/radiobradshaw, so you can see me write more less than kind things to say about Chuck Grassley and his vote against the Violence Against Women Act. Not kidding, he offered an amendment to strip protections for tribal lands. Apparently they don't need a Violence Against Women Act. They need, I don't know, is Chuck Grassley going to show up and give out free blankets? Because ixnay on the Istri A on that one. Not really sure what his plan is there. But anyway, stay hydrated. And we'll reconvene tomorrow here at 1:30 on The Bradshaw Show, Webcast One Live. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.